The air was thick with smoke and the hum of distant artillery. Aiden Cross stepped carefully over the debris, his boots crunching broken glass as firelight flickered along the shattered walls. The sky above, once silver blue, was smeared in ash and plasma trails. The city had fallen days ago, but the evacuation center was still combing through ruins for survivors. He wasn't supposed to be here anymore. His unit had pulled out that morning, but something kept him close. A quiet feeling in his chest, like a whisper he couldn't ignore. He moved through what had once been a residential dome, now collapsed and half buried under rubble. A sound stopped him. Faint, high-pitched, not a weapon, not a machine. A child's. Breath, short and uneven, coming from beneath a cracked support beam. He dropped to his knees, pushing aside loose stones with his bare hands, ignoring the sharp edges digging into his skin. Beneath the debris, curled tightly against a wall panel, was a girl. No older than 7 by the look of her. Her skin shimmered with a soft lilac hue, cut and bruised, and her silver-white hair was matted with dust. Large violet eyes stared back at him, wide with fear. She didn't speak, just flinched as he reached out. "It's okay," he said gently, setting his weapon aside. "You're safe now. I'm not going to hurt you." She blinked, her lips parted, trying to form words. He couldn't understand. He reached under his collar and pulled off the small translator pendant he wore around his neck. He leaned forward slowly, showing her the device before placing it near her ear. It activated with a soft tone. "I don't understand your words," she whispered. "You don't have to," Aiden replied, giving her a tired smile. "Just listen." She nodded, hesitant, but didn't move away. "What's your name?" he asked. "Naira," she answered, her voice barely audible. "Naira," he repeated softly. "That's a good name. I'm Aiden." He carefully helped her out from the broken wall. She winced as she moved, favoring one leg, but didn't cry. She was silent, alert, watching everything. "You're alone?" he asked. She nodded once. "My family was taken. I hid. They didn't find me." "You did the right thing," he said. "I'll get you somewhere safe." She looked at the skies, then back at him. "Everyone's leaving. Evacuation's almost over." I stayed behind. She tilted her head. "Why?" Aiden hesitated. "I guess I didn't want to leave someone behind either." She looked at him for a long time, as if measuring the truth in his words. "If I come with you, will you stay with me?" she asked. Her question hit harder than any blast he'd faced in battle. In the smoke and silence, her voice sounded too small for a world. This broken. He didn't know what to say. He wasn't a father or a hero. He wasn't sure he'd even survive the week, but she looked at him like he was the last safe thing in the universe. He reached for the translator again and gently placed it around her neck. "As long as you wear this," he said, "you'll never be alone." Naira stared at the necklace, fingers brushing the glowing emblem. Then she looked up at him and nodded. The ground shook from another blast in the distance. He lifted her into his arms. She didn't resist. She rested her head against his chest, trembling quietly. The extraction team arrived minutes later. 2 soldiers from his unit spotted him near the old plaza and waved him over. "We thought you were dead, Cross," one of them muttered. "Not yet," Aiden replied. "Got one left. They boarded the last skimmer out of the zone just as the fires consumed the outer blocks." Aiden held her close the whole way, unsure what would happen next, but unwilling to let go. Naira didn't speak again that day. She just sat beside him in silence, her hand wrapped tightly around the translator pendant. By the time they reached orbit, she had fallen asleep. And when the ship cleared the planet's pull, Aiden looked down one last time, wondering if anything real had survived the war. He didn't know that years later, the little girl with violet eyes would cross the stars to find him again, and ask him to keep the promise he never thought she'd remember. 12 years passed like a distant echo. Aiden Cross had left the war behind. These days, he worked as an off-grid systems engineer in the outskirts of Terra City, a man who preferred quiet metal and clean circuitry over politics or ceremony. His hands, once trained for survival, were now steady with wiring and calibration. The only relic from his past hung by the window of his small workshop, a cracked translator pendant, long deactivated but never discarded. The skies above Earth were unusually active. Foreign vessels dotted the atmosphere in tight formations, sleek and glimmering like blades of light. Aiden noticed them during his morning walk but paid little attention. First contact events had become routine in recent years. The Galactic Accord sent diplomats regularly now. Curiosity no longer stirred him, until a call came. An unfamiliar voice summoned him to Unity Hall, Earth's interstellar embassy in the capital. No explanation, just a firm request. No, a requirement, delivered with diplomatic precision. He hadn't been inside those walls in a decade. The guards at the gate gave him curious glances, as if trying to match the weathered man in a field jacket to some forgotten file in their archives. Inside, the hall gleamed with new construction. Transparent ceilings filtered starlight, and artificial waterfalls whispered along polished walls. Humanity had grown up. Everything looked too perfect. They led him to a private chamber near the ambassadorial ring. The lights dimmed as the doors sealed behind him. A projection of Earth's Council emblem flickered briefly, then vanished. And then she stepped in, tall, graceful, and cloaked in silver. Her posture regal, movements fluid like drifting water. Her skin carried the same soft lavender tone he remembered, but now it shimmered under the lights like silk in motion. Her eyes, still violet and impossibly deep, locked onto his the instant she entered. The room fell quiet. Even the ambient hum faded. He stared, unsure if he was hallucinating. For a moment, the walls of the chamber seemed to pull away, and he was back in the rubble, holding a girl too small to stand on her own. "Naira?" he asked, the name leaving his lips in disbelief. She smiled faintly, though it didn't reach her eyes. "You remember," she said. Her voice had matured, lower, more deliberate. But there was something untouched beneath it, the sound of someone who had waited too long to speak. Aiden took a step forward, unsure whether to approach her as an old friend or a stranger. "I thought you were gone. After the evac, no one knew what happened to the civilians. I was taken back to Valari Prime," she replied. "My family was alive, hidden. They reclaimed me once the city fell." "You didn't send word, not even a message." "I was forbidden to," she said softly. "Until today." She reached up and touched her neck. From beneath the folds of her robe, the old translator pendant emerged, still functional, still glowing. Aiden's breath caught. "I kept it," she said. "Even when they tried to take it from me, I repaired it myself, learned every piece of its design, and through it, I remembered you." He stepped back, overwhelmed. "Why now?" he asked. "Why come here?" "I made a promise to return," she said. "And so did you." He stared at her, heart pounding. That was a child's promise. "In my world," she said, voice unwavering, "promises made in fear or innocence are considered the most binding. They are untouched by agenda." Silence stretched between them. Outside, a diplomatic shuttle drifted across the glass sky, and casting soft shadows. "I didn't know you'd remember," Aiden admitted. "I did more than remember," she said. "I returned as envoy of the Accord, and I made Earth my first destination." He blinked, caught between confusion and awe. "You came all this way? For what?" She closed the distance between them in 2 slow steps. "To ask if your promise still matters." He looked down, struggling for words. The girl he once comforted had become a woman of presence, power, and poise, but her eyes still held that same raw question. "I don't even know you anymore," he said. "Then know me," she replied. The Accord has granted Earth an opportunity. Full alliance, shared science, mutual protection. But I asked for one condition." His jaw tightened. "What condition?" "That you stand beside me for the courtship ceremony," she said. "Publicly, 3 cycles. No binding, no obligation. Just time." "That's what this is really about?" he asked. "Politics?" Her eyes darkened slightly. "No. It's about the person who knelt in ash and told me I'd never be alone." She turned to leave, the folds of her robe swirling like mist. "I'll be here for 7 Earth days," she added. "After that, my duties return me to the core worlds. But if you come to the Starbridge Hall before then, I'll know your answer." Aiden stood alone in the silence, watching the door close behind her. Outside, the lights of her ship shimmered in the sky, like a promise that refused to burn out. Aiden sat at the edge of the old lake outside Unity Hall, its glassy surface untouched by the sky traffic above. He tossed a stone into the water, watching ripples spread until they vanished. The past 2 days had felt like walking through a dream he didn't remember entering. Naira's return wasn't just personal. It was political, diplomatic, and dangerous. She had become something more than memory, something real. And the world around him was changing in response to her presence. When he finally returned to the embassy, the guards gave him a nod. No questions, no resistance. He walked through the archway without explaining why. The hallways were quiet, lit with soft blue lights that adjusted with each step. Security scans passed over him, but none stopped him. Someone had cleared his path. In the main atrium, the Starbridge glowed like woven fire suspended mid-air. Naira stood beneath it, her hands clasped in front of her, a figure of stillness in the glowing storm. Her dress today was less ceremonial, more practical, shaped for movement, not spectacle. But her presence remained commanding, her eyes steady as he approached. "I didn't think you would come," she said without turning. "I almost didn't," he replied. "This isn't a simple invitation." "No, it isn't." She turned, slowly to face him. "But I've never wanted anything simple." He exhaled, the weight of the decision pressing on his shoulders. "You're asking me to stand beside you, not as a friend, but as a symbol, a human in the middle of an alien alliance, all eyes watching." Naira stepped forward. "Not as a symbol, as someone who once made me feel safe when the world was falling." "Apart," he hesitated. "What exactly happens in this courtship ceremony?" "It begins with a public agreement," she said. "Then follows 3 cycles of shared rituals. Each one tests compatibility, emotionally, mentally, and in decision-making. And at the end, either side may walk away without shame," she said. "But it must be honest." He studied her carefully. "Why me? After all this time, why risk your reputation on someone who's done nothing but disappear into his own silence?" Naira didn't flinch. "Because silence is the only place truth grows. I've met hundreds of leaders, warriors, scientists. All of them speak in noise. You were the only one who listened to a child cry and offered peace without expecting anything in return." Aiden lowered his eyes for a moment. "What if we're not the same people anymore?" "Then let the rituals reveal that," she said. "But I believe we are still shaped by what matters." He looked back at her and nodded. "I'll stand beside you." Naira's lips curved slightly. Not a smile of victory, but something gentler. Recognition. That afternoon, the ceremony began. The Hall of Accord shimmered with banners from dozens of worlds. Officials from across the galaxy stood in silent anticipation. Earth's delegation watched from a raised platform, their expressions tense but curious. Naira and Aiden stepped into the center of the circular chamber, facing the council ring. The Eye, presiding arbiter, a tall figure with obsidian skin and eyes like molten gold, raised a crystalline scepter. "State your intention," it said, its voice smooth as glass. Naira spoke first. I wish to enter ceremonial courtship with Aiden Cross, citizen of Earth. I do so willingly without coercion, and in full alignment with Accord traditions. Aiden followed. I accept this request in good faith. I commit to the customs required, and I offer honesty in return. The arbiter lowered the scepter, and the circle around them pulsed with light. The ritual had begun. Afterward, they retreated to a quieter balcony overlooking the city. The stars shimmered through the transparent dome above, distant and sharp. Below, earthlights flickered in shifting colors, a mosaic of change. You handled that better than most, Naira said, sipping a cup of pale green liquid that smelled faintly of citrus. I memorized half the ceremony script last night, Aiden admitted. Didn't want to insult anyone by blinking wrong. You did more than memorize. You adapted. Her eyes narrowed slightly with approval. That's rare among your kind. He leaned against the railing. So what's the first ritual? Coherence, she said. We're placed in unfamiliar situations and must make decisions together. No advisors, no translations, just instinct and trust. He laughed lightly. And if we fail? Then we know the truth sooner rather than later. Aiden turned toward her. You really believe we'll pass? I believe in what we once were, she said, and in what we might still be. They stood in silence, watching the light stretch beyond the horizon. The peace between them felt fragile, but not false. Later, as they returned to separate quarters, Naira paused at her door. I'm not expecting the man you were back then, she said quietly. But I am hoping the man standing here still carries a little of him inside. Aiden looked at her for a long moment. He never really left. He just stopped believing anyone would come back. She nodded once, stepped inside, and the door slid shut behind her. In the silence of his own room, Aiden placed the old pendant on the table beside him. The glow had faded years ago, but tonight it seemed to catch a flicker of light. Something had begun again, and this time, he wasn't turning away. The jungle moon of Virith glowed with bioluminescent life. Giant trees pulsed with light. Leaves shimmered like stained glass under twin suns. Aiden and Naira stood at the edge of a field, both dressed in ceremonial gear, lightweight and breathable, designed for endurance. This was the first trial of the coherence ritual. No translators. No advisors, no weapons, only their choices. A small drone hovered beside them, broadcasting the ritual across multiple systems. Representatives from Earth, Valari Prime, and 12 neutral factions observed silently, their judgments reserved but inevitable. They were to traverse unknown terrain, locate 3 waypoints, and complete a shared task at each. No outside help. The test measured trust, instinct, and harmony under pressure. If they couldn't reach the final signal together, the courtship would end immediately. Naira glanced at the sky. Storm within 6 hours, she said. Aiden squinted up. How can you tell? Low cloud pressure. Violet haze under the canopy. Native storms move vertically, not horizontally. Remind me not to challenge your weather senses. She gave a half smile and started walking. Let's move. First beacon lies southeast. The ground was uneven, slick with glowing moss. Strange animal calls echoed in the distance. As they moved deeper into the forest, the plants reacted to their presence, folding, curling, retreating like shy animals. Aiden stepped carefully, but Naira moved with confident strides, clearly familiar with the terrain. You've been here before, he said. Trained here for 2 years, she replied. This moon hosts some of our most intense diplomatic training exercises. Aiden let out a slow breath. Of course it does. She paused beside a tree with red tendrils curling from its base. Don't touch that, she said quickly. Why not? It releases spores that cause temporary memory loss. He backed away. Good to know. They reached the first beacon just past a fallen archroot tree. A small console blinked amber. Aiden approached, studying its interface. It needs a dual input code, he noted. One in Earth Standard, one in Valari Numeric. Nira knelt beside him. Both must be entered simultaneously. I've never seen Valari math before, Aiden admitted. I've never studied Earth logic gates, she said. They looked at each other. Switch roles, he suggested. Nira nodded. She examined the Earth side while he memorized the Valari numerals. Neither understood fully, but they began to mimic patterns and find overlap in rhythms and sequencing. After several trials, the console beeped green. The beacon emitted a soft tone and marked their progress. That was surprisingly easy, Aiden muttered. You're good at adapting, Nira replied. You don't think in lines. They pushed onward. The second leg was harder, thicker foliage, steep inclines. At one point, Aiden slipped while crossing a shallow ravine. Nira grabbed his wrist, her grip stronger than he expected. You all right? She asked, breathless. Yeah, he said, pulling himself up. Not used to relying on someone else. Then learn. The second beacon was suspended within a floating vine structure. They had to climb opposite ends of the twisting bridge, balance movement, and reach the central node at the same time. One wrong step would retract the structure. Aiden's body ached. The old injury in his left knee flared. He gritted his teeth and pressed forward. 2 steps left, Nira called. I'll slow my pace. No, he said. Match me. I'll catch up. They adjusted, synchronized. With a final lunge, both reached the core. Another green pulse. The node vanished, replaced by a small cube. Nira caught it and turned it over in her palm. A key, she said. Final beacon requires this. They took a short rest beneath an arch of glowing stones. Aiden leaned back, wiping sweat from his forehead. How did you remember me? He asked quietly. Nira sipped from her flask, then looked up. I didn't have to remember. I couldn't forget. He studied her profile. Her sharp features softened in the shifting moonlight. I was just a scared guy in a broken city. You gave me calm when I needed it most. I clung to that moment when everything else crumbled. He looked away. I've spent years wondering if anything I did mattered. It mattered to me. They rose in silence. The final stretch loomed ahead, a narrow ridge bordered by towering cliffs and heavy mist. Halfway across, an explosion shook the path. The ground beneath Aiden crumbled. He fell, grabbing a jagged edge with both hands. His feet dangled over empty space. Nira dropped to her knees, crawling to him. Hold on! I'm trying! She extended her hand. He reached up, fingers barely brushing hers. A second tremor hit, and dust filled the air. Let go of your right hand, she said suddenly. Are you insane? You're caught on a brake line. It's collapsing. Trust me. He stared at her. Then he released. The instant he did, her grip tightened on his left wrist, pulling hard. He slammed against the ridge, gasping, and she hauled him up with a grunt of effort. They lay there, coughing, covered in dust. Remind me, he muttered. What part of this builds trust? All of it, she said, laughing breathlessly. The final beacon stood at the ridge's peak. Aiden inserted the cube. Nira placed her palm over the sensor. Together, the platform activated. A beam of light shot skyward. The trial was complete. As they descended slowly back toward the base, Aiden glanced sideways at her. You rewrote your planet's laws for this? I did. That's a hell of a risk. Love always is. He didn't reply. He just reached out, gently taking her hand in his. She didn't let go. They walked together, 2 shadows in the strange light, surrounded by a world that had tested them and found something real.